For sport on PM News, South Africa are in a crisis ahead of their 2016 CHAN qualifier against Mauritius in Soweto on Saturday. Bafana Bafana's training session that was supposed to be held at the University of Johannesburg yesterday was called off due to unforeseen circumstances, and reports are that 12 players have been withdrawn from the squad. The tournament to be staged in Rwanda next year is exclusively for players plying their trade in their domestic leagues, and South Africa will be minus overseas-based players such as Tulani Serero, Ayanda Patosi and Meima Shangu for the tournament. Orlando Pirates confirmed their players would be unavailable. Pirates have recalled all players in preparations for their CAF Confederations Cup game against AC Leopards of Congo next weekend. Reports reveal that up to 5 PSL clubs have withdrawn their players from the squad. Now let's get some analysis on the current developments, and we are joined in the studio by our sports analyst Sipho Kekana to help us unpack the issue regarding Bafana Bafana and the African Nations Championship, often referred to as CHAN. And thank you very much for joining us on our program.
Thanks for having me, Colin.
Let's start on the situation with Bafana Bafana. Surely it is very devastating for Sheikh Bashaba, very frustrating for him because he often complains that he doesn't get players, so he has to make selections from the young boys. What do you make out of this now?
Well, there are many ways to look at this. There's a crisis that is very true. If you're going to have a situation where clubs dictate to the coach, the national team coach, which players he can have for which matches, that is a crisis. At the moment, he has 11 players left in the squad, in the team. 3 of those 11 players are goalkeepers. He has to play a match tomorrow. Are we going to have Kune playing a striker? So those he has a crisis at the moment. But it also sets a platform for excuses for him, because you need to support the national team coach. If he fails, he will turn around and say, I asked for these players and they were not provided to me. So there are many ways to look at it.
Yeah, it's really confusing because most of the time you get the fans saying, no, Sheikhs must go. We actually saw from the beginning that he was not the right man for the job. But actually, has Sheikhs ever had a fully fledged squad with senior players and mixing with talent so that he can be able to target the results that he envisaged to achieve in a build-up to what, the next World Cup?
Well, I think no, but at the moment we have to look at this CHAN tournament. I think there's a certain kind of attitude. There's a very wrong attitude towards CHAN from our clubs. Our clubs don't actually regard this tournament very highly for reasons known to them. But I think it could be for a certain a benefit of some sort. But I think Sheikhs also needs to sit down and actually re-evaluate what kind of players he needs for CHAN. You cannot be calling again your senior players that played against your Angola and the likes of Pungwa, your Gabuza. You cannot be expecting those players to play in the CHAN tournament. What benefit would that be? Why not call your under-20s, your younger players in the PSL to actually feature in this tournament? So like I said, there are many ways to look at it. You understand why Pirates actually decided to call their players back. They have a very important fixture next week against Leopards. What if their players get injured for a tournament like CHAN? So it's a very catch-22 situation for everybody.
So how many South African players who are registered currently are playing in South Africa?
Well, on average, I think the average is about 28 per club. So it would give you between 450 and 500 registered players in the PSL. But that also highlights a certain kind of crisis that we have in the country, because if you have about 450 players, okay, let's minus 50 and say perhaps 400 South Africans. If you have about 400 South African players and you have this kind of crisis, it could mean Sheikhs doesn't think we have enough quality for the national team. It would mean you have hundreds of players playing in the PSL who Sheikhs believes are not good enough to feature in his squad.
We talked about attitude as well. The element of patriotism is also lacking on some senior players. Some of them saying they are not backup players, and some others saying they are tired when they are caught. Do you think Shakes has a good relationship with senior players, especially overseas-based players?
I think I've always held Shakes in very high regard. And I've always thought he was a good man manager, because I think those kind of issues, there was Kemet Erasmus saying that I'm not a bigger player. I think even if you are a coach, you also need to be a good man manager. If you are not going to call players up for the national team, good coaches call players to say, you know what, I'm not going to call you up for these reasons. It also, not only does it improve the relationship between the coach and the players, but it also helps the players work on whatever it is that makes them not qualified to play in the national team at that particular time.
All right, thank you very much, Sipho. Thank you very much for your analysis. All right, Sipho Kekana is our SABC sports analyst talking to us right here on PM News on the latest situation of Bafana Bafana, which is really inadvertently in a crisis.